Greetings. Welcome to Swayam Online Learning Portal. I am Dr. S. Ishwari, Head of the Department of Geography, Madras Christian College. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about various thermal layers and structure of atmosphere. In this lecture, we will be discussing on seasonal climate patterns across the latitudes. So, what are all the contents we will be discussing in this lecture is the reasons for the seasonal variations in the latitudes, the latitudinal region and climate types, characteristics of climate types and special seasonal patterns, factors influencing the latitudinal climate types. Climate, we all know what is meant by climate. The climate is a long term average of weather patterns in a region. So, it includes what are all the elements of climate, that is temperature, rainfall, humidity, wind and seasonal changes. So, what are all the factors which influence the climate? So, they are the latitudes which determines the solar energy which is received to the earth's surface, and altitudes that we all know, that altitude, that height, that determines whether it is directly received solar radiation, whether it is a higher latitude, how far it is very cooler, if it is going to be lower latitude, how far it is going to be warmer. So, that determines by the altitudes. And ocean currents. So, we have warm or cold ocean currents which modifies the temperature. Then comes the topography, that is either it may be a mountainous region which will be very cold, and it may be a plain section, it may be comparatively hotter, that is warmer. So, these are all the important factors which determines the climate of particular latitudes. Why season varies with the latitudes? So, in the previous lecture itself, we have discussed about what is the major reasons. Can you remember that? That is the earth axial tilt, that is what is the degree? The degree is 23.5 degrees. So, our earth is tilted in the 23.5 degree as a tilted axis, and it causes the rays, a difference in rays, that is the straight rays and then the slanting rays which strikes the earth's surface. That higher the latitudes, what happens? It receives the lower the angles and resulting in the colder temperature. So, here as we have discussed earlier, so here it is higher latitudes. So, in this higher latitudes, what happens? It receives only the lower incoming solar radiation, that is the earth experiences in that latitude, it is a cold temperature. And then the seasonal contract is also because of increase with the distance from the equator. So, if it is an equator climate, that is the incoming solar radiation will be intense and then it will be very warmer, but comparatively if it is going to be a polar region, the incoming solar radiation will be somewhat, that is slanting, and it will be very much colder in that particular season, in that particular latitude. First and foremost is the equatorial and tropical region, that is the degree of equatorial and tropic region is 0 degree to 23.5 degree northern and southern latitudes. That is, here is the equator and here is 30 degrees. So, approximately you will be having 23.5 degree north, that is the Tropic of Cancer, and here 23.5 degrees south, that is the Tropic of Capricorn. So, this is the extension of this particular latitudinal section. What is that? That is equatorial and tropical regions. This is the location about it, and it receives the direct solar radiation. So, we all know that this region is influenced by the direct solar radiation. So, because of that, what happens? The day length is nearly constant, that is 12 hours daytime and 12 hours night time. So, it will be a constant in this region, and then the minimal temperature variation will be there. So, compared to the polar region, there will be a minimal temperature variation in this latitude. The next is that the temperature pattern of this particular latitude. So, what is the temperature pattern of this particular latitude? That is, it experiences 25 to 30 degrees Celsius throughout the year. So, as we have discussed that it have the direct solar radiation, because of that 25 to 30 degree is the constant high temperature which have been received in this latitudes. That is the very small annual temperature range, that is usually less than 3 degrees Celsius. So, what is meant by the annual temperature range? That is, if we consider the annual temperature range, what is the hottest month of the year and what is the coldest month of the year? What is the hottest month's highest temperature? What is the coldest month's the lowest temperature? And the difference of this two is considered to be the annual temperature range. The intense solar radiation due to overhead. This is because of the solar radiation is overhead. So, that is the particular reason for this, and there is no a distinct hot or cold season in this particular latitudes. The high humidity experiences heat perception, and if it is going to be this latitudinal, if one is going to be in this latitude, what they experience? They experience the heat perception and creates the moist and warm environment. So, somewhat it will be sultry in condition. So, in this diagram you can see that the usually the June, July, especially the July hits the highest temperature, and while coming towards the January, there is a slanting decrease, and after July when it reaches to the December, and there is a slanting decrease. This was the temperature pattern of this equatorial and tropical region. Then comes the rainfall pattern. So, what is the rainfall condition of this latitude? That is, it experiences very high annual rainfall. Why? There is an intense solar radiation. Because of intense heat, there is the very high annual rainfall. So, what is the amount of rainfall received in this latitude? 2000 to 3000 millimeters or more than that. That is the condition of this latitude. The rainfall occurs throughout the year, and it is not extending for a long duration, but what is the condition? The short or weak dry spells will be there in this latitude. And the rainfall, we have various precipitation type, that is rainfall type. That is, the rainfall which is experienced in this latitude is conventional rainfall. So, conventional rainfall means that is the intense heating. Because of intense heating, what happened? The rise of moist air. So, because of this process, the conventional rainfall is dominant in this particular latitude. And then ITCZ strongly control the rainfall. What is meant by ITCZ? That is intertropical convergence zones. So, intertropical convergence zone is here in this diagram. You can see in the center part. So, this one is mainly controlling the rainfall pattern of this particular latitudes. Because of the shift of this ITCZ, that is with the strong sun's movement. So, if the sun is going to move here and there, so because of that, what happened? This ICTZ also slightly there will be a movement. So, because of this process, there is a very high annual rainfall in this latitude. In afternoon, there might be an thunderstorms, and it might be a frequent process in this latitude, and heavy and short duration showers is the main characteristics of this particular latitude. What are all the vegetation we can see in this particular latitude? That is tropical rainforest climate. The vegetation is tropical rainforest, and the climate which is experienced is tropical rainforest climate. It is located near the equator, and in this map you can see that the particular regions have the this kind of climatic condition. What? That is tropical rainforest climate. So, that is Amazon, Congo region, and then the Congo basin, and then the Southeast Asia are the part of this tropical rainforest climate region. The high annual rainfall, that is about 2000 millimeters with no distinct dry season, is the main characteristics of this particular tropical rainforest climate. and there is a uniform warm temperature which is around 25 degree to 28 degrees Celsius year around. And what is the humidity content of this particular region? That is high humidity and dense evergreen forest dominate in this region. The biodiversity, so because of this high that is temperature and then heavy rainfall, the biodiversity will be very rich, automatically it will be very rich. It supports the complex ecosystem and multi-layered vegetation from short shrubs till the long trees. We can see the diversified layers in this particular tropical rainforest climate region. Next is the tropical savanna climate. The tropical savanna climate found in the tropical grassland, such as in the map you can see the regions which have been distributed by this savanna climate, that is the Africa, North Australia, Central Brazil, East and Central Africa, all belongs to this particular this particular tropical savanna climate. The distinct wet and dry season is the main characteristics. And how far the summer and winter will be? The summer will be wet in condition and winter will be dry in condition. So high temperature will be throughout the year with the greater variations in the rainfall than the temperature. That was the characteristics of this particular region. The vegetation dominated in this particular savanna climate is the dominated by the tall grasses. Savanna, we all know that it is a grassland. So what grass? Tall grasses are there in this particular region with the scattered drought resistant trees. Because of hot nature, some regions might be experiencing the drought conditions. So, the drought resistant crops also found in this particular tropical savanna climate region. The fire adapted ecosystem, that is which also supports the grazing animals and then seasonal migration patterns. All these are the characteristics of tropical savanna climate. The next layer is the subtropical region. So, subtropical region, the location of subtropical region is 23.5 degree to 35 degree north and south latitudes. So, it is in between which latitudes? It is in between tropics and then mid latitudinal regions of both the hemisphere. It have the hot summer and mild to cold winter. This is the characteristics of this particular latitude, with a notable seasonal contrast will be there in subtropical region. The rain varies seasonally, which have been influenced by monsoons or shifting subtropical high pressure belt. So, this is the catch here, that this region have which seasonal rainfall, that is monsoon or shifting subtropical high pressure belts rainfall. And it includes major climatic types such as desert, Mediterranean and humid subtropical climate types. Vegetation ranges widely from xerophyte desert plants to Mediterranean shrubs and moist evergreen forest. So, this is the condition because some regions might experience the desert conditions. So, because of that, the xerophytic plants and the drought resisting shrubs and the ecological biological life will be prevailing in the subtropical region. What is the summer pattern of this region? That is high summer temperature. It is often 30 to 40 degrees Celsius in desert and warm hot in humid subtropical region. So, this was the summer temperature of this subtropical region. Strong solar heating will be prevailing in this latitudes, that is it creates a dry, scorching conditions in the subtropical regions because of the intense heat which will be prevailing in this latitudes. The summer rainfall is common in this latitude and it's already we have discussed that it is a monsoon influenced subtropical areas. The frequent thunders, especially in the humid subtropical zones, which is prevalent, and moist unstable air masses which leads to intense but short duration showers in some regions of this particular latitude. What is the winter pattern of this particular latitude? That is mild winter temperature gradually ranging from 10 to 20 degrees Celsius. So, dominated by subtropical high pressure systems, which brings the dry and stable weather condition. So, and low humidity will be there, and the clear skies are the common during which season, that is winter months. The Mediterranean regions receives most of their annual rainfall in winter. The occasional cold waves may occur when there is a mid-latitude air masses moves towards the equator side. So, if the wind moves occasionally towards the equator side, there might be what? Occasional cold waves. And mostly in the Mediterranean region, so there is a winter rainfall. The next latitude is, the next climate type is subtropical region. The climate type, what are all the climate type is prevailing in the subtropical region? The Mediterranean climate. So, the characteristics of Mediterranean climate is hot, dry summers and mild wet winters. So, this is the characteristics of Mediterranean climate. It is nearby the Mediterranean Sea. And humid subtropical climate, that is the warm to hot and humid and wet summer and mild winter is the characteristics of this humid subtropical climate. Then is subtropical desert climate. So, the name itself implies that it is extremely hot, dry summer and cooler dry winter. The rainfall distribution in this region is from concentrated winter rain, as we see in the previous slide, winter rain in Mediterranean region and summer monsoon rain in humid subtropical region. The vegetation ranges from drought resistant crop, that is shrubs in Mediterranean region, to lush forest in humid subtropical and to sparse desert plants in subtropical deserts. So, there is a diversified vegetation characteristics found in this subtropical region. Next latitude is temperate region. The temperate region covers the location of 35 degree to 66.5 degree north and south hemisphere. That is, it is located in both the hemisphere and it experiences the 4 distinct seasons. So, in the previous lectures we have come across this season. So, this 4 distinct seasons have been prevailing in which latitude? That is this temperate regions. In this region, the 4 distinct seasons have been witnessed. That is, first one is spring, second is summer, then autumn and winter. There is a large temperature variation across the season due to changing solar angle. So far what happened? The solar radiation have struck directly and somewhat here the striking is somewhat differs in this particular latitude. So, because of that, what is the changing solar angle plays a vital role in this temperate region. And with the moderate climate overall, neither extreme heat nor extreme cold for longer period prevails in this climatic condition, that is in this latitude. The precipitation is well distributed, often supports what? Forest, grassland and rich agriculture. So, there is a diversified again vegetation is distributed because of the precipitation which have been received by this region. Summer pattern, how the summer will be in this temperate region. So, summer, the name itself implies that the long daylight hours and high solar angle with a temperature of 20 to 30 degree Celsius. And the coastal areas, moderate rainfall will be received. There will be a coastal maritime influence will be there in the coastal areas. The inland region which experiences the thunderstorm. So, inland region somewhat it is away from the water bodies. So, there is an intense heat and the process will leads to the thunderstorm. And peak growth period for crop and vegetation will be there in summer season. This is the optimal time for the agricultural activities. Next comes the winter pattern. So, in the winter pattern, the days will be very short and there will be low solar angle which leads to the cold temperature. The temperature is the range is -5 to 10 degree Celsius, and there is a common feature, that is a snow in the higher latitudes, and the vegetation here is dormant. Because of winter season it is dormant, and there is a minimal agricultural activity due to the severe cold condition which does not favor the agricultural activity, and the rivers and lakes are freezing condition because of this low solar radiation and severe cold. Then comes the spring pattern, that is the temperature begins to rise after winter. There is a rise in the temperature and bringing the mild and pleasant weather condition, and there is an increase in daylight hours. So, there is somewhat gaining in the daylight hours as the sun moves higher in the sky. This is the reason for that, and snow and ice melt and replenish the rivers and soils. So, the freezing condition, now there is a melting state. So, because of that new plant growth was there in this particular season, and the flowers blooms, and then there is a budding trees which germinate in this spring season. The moderate rainfall which supports the renewed vegetation pattern and agricultural activity in temperate region during spring season. Next is autumn pattern. The days shorten, again it comes to shrink, the days are short and the temperature gradually cool. So, the leaves changes its color and there is a deciduous trees prepare for the winter season. So, the harvest season for many crops and moderate rainfall continues here, and the frost may begin in higher latitudes. So, this was the major characteristics of temperate region autumn season. Next is the temperate climate types. So, what are all the temperate climate types? First one is oceanic climate type, that is mild summer, cool winter, frequent rainfall is the characteristics of oceanic climate type. Next is the continental type. The name itself we can understand that it is somewhat interior part of the earth's surface which have no influence of water bodies. The hot summer and cold winter with the large seasonal temperature extremes are the main characteristics of this continental climate type. The moderate overall climate is moderate and which supports the diverse vegetation. The distinct seasonal changes, that is in temperate region, that is a spring, summer, autumn, winter, that distinct seasonal change have been witnessed, and agriculture which is suited for cereals, fruits and vegetables which supports this particular climate, supports this particular crops. Next one is the topmost latitude, that is the which covers in the northern and southern part of the earth's surface, that is polar region. The location is 66.5 degree to 90 degree north and south latitudes. That is it found in Arctic in the North Pole, here Arctic, okay, and then you have Antarctic in the pole in the south pole, okay. It's extremely cold temperature year around and very low solar energy is received in this pole sites, and the ice sheets and snow dominate and the landscapes of freezing condition will be there in the northern and southern poles, and minimal vegetation because it does not support the vegetation growth. So, because of that there is a minimal vegetation and it also limits the animal and other biological lives in this particular polar region. Polar day and night. So, what's polar day and night? That is the sun in the polar day, sun remains above the horizon. Okay, it's remain above the horizon continuously, which was the summer state, and the daylight will be there for few months. And next one is polar night, that is the sun stay below the horizon which experience continuously winter, that is darkness. Okay, this extreme light and dark cycles influence the daily life of that particular polar latitudes. Strongly it affects the temperature pattern. So, if it is going to be very dark for few months and bright for few months, it's definitely affect the life forms. The impact is that the ecosystem and biological activity is affected because of this polar day and night process. In the polar climate, the summer pattern, how the summer pattern will be? The slight warming during summer and transition period. So, some rays can be, solar radiation can be seen in summer season. Some ice and snow begins to melt in that particular summer season, and coastal areas it may rise slightly above 0 degrees Celsius, and the vegetation here is mosses, lichens and the sparse tundra plants which prevails in this particular polar climatic condition. The short growing season, that is minimal agriculture, is practiced in this polar climate. Next is the winter pattern. How the winter will be there in the polar climate? Extreme cold, and the temperature below is what? Minus 30 degrees Celsius in the interior regions, and snow and ice covers a permanent state of this particular region. And polar winds and frequent blizzards are also witnessed in this particular region in the winter season. Very limited vegetation and wildlife activity are seen in this polar climatic region. The rivers and lakes are frozen state, and which supports the human habitation. Polar climate types. What are all the climates which have been prevailed in the polar region? That is ice cap climate, where there is a permanent ice cover, no vegetation. If there is a permanent ice cover, no vegetation. And then tundra climate, that is short summer, sparse plant life, that is mosses and lichens will be grown in this particular tundra climate, and extreme cold temperature around the year. The strong seasonal light that varies from polar day and night, the characteristics which we have discussed earlier. The minimal human habitat ecosystems adapt to harsh conditions. So, apart from the various climatic regular season, we have a special seasonal patterns also, that is monsoon climate. So, we all know that. So, India, our country is a monsoon country. So, that particular type of climate is comes under special seasonal pattern, that is a wet summer with the heavy rainfall from seasonal wind reversal, and dry winter with the descending dry air which dominates. So, this was a special characteristics of monsoon. In the monsoon lecture, we will be discussing more about the monsoon. And then it is found in which region? That is south and southeastern Asian part, and it has a strong seasonal contrast, that is the temperature and precipitation have contrast in this monsoon climate, which also supports the intense agricultural during wet season. The next is the continental climate. The continental climate is the interior part which experience this continentality. The large annual temperature range will be there, and hot summers and cold winter is the special characteristics of continental climate, and precipitation varies seasonally. And snow is common in winter months, and it's mainly found in the interior region away from the oceans. The influence of ocean and topography, that is the ocean currents. We all know that there is a warm ocean current and cold ocean current which influences the milder climate, that is milder winter in the warm currents which experienced in the western Europe, and in the cold current which experience the cooler summer and arid coastal regions. The moderate seasonal temperature differs near the coast. It influences the rainfall pattern and storm intensity. It also affects the marine and coastal ecosystem. The mountain and rain shadow region. that is the orographic rainfall. So, in the precipitation we will be discussing more about this, that is the windward side and leeward side. So, here this is the windward side and this part is the leeward side. Here there is a receiving of intense rainfall in this portion, and the vegetation cover will be more in this particular region. Comparatively, this region, while the air doesn't, it loses its moisture and it brings the dry nature, and it does not support the vegetation in this leeward side. Coastal west inland region. So, the coastal, we have discussed this one earlier in the continentality, that is the coastal region which receives the moderate temperature, and there is a smaller seasonal temperature variation near the coast. Inland region which faces the extreme summer and winter temperature. From distance from the sea influences both the rainfall and humidity, which in turn impact the agriculture, vegetation and human comforts. Overall summary of this lecture is the seasonal variation is different in different latitudes. It is mainly because of Earth's tilt and revolution, which affects the solar radiation. The latitude regions, that is the tropical, temperate and polar, have its own distinct climatic condition. That is, what all the climatic condition? Hot and humid, moderate with season and cold respectively. The special seasonal patterns like monsoon or polar day and night occurs due to these variations. The latitude, altitude, winds, ocean currents and proximity to water influence these climatic type. Hope you all understand the concept of what is the seasonal variation of latitudes, how the season varies from each latitudes. In the upcoming lecture, we will be discussing about insolation. Thank you.